He received a letter with no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper with one phrase, "Don't go to that intersection." That same evening, a body was found there. I found the envelope in the morning as I was leaving for work. The paper was yellowed, as if the letter had been lying around for years, but the postmark showed yesterday's date. The note was brief, "Don't go to that intersection." I even chuckled. What kind of joke was this? But all day it wouldn't leave my mind. Which intersection? Why shouldn't I go there? By evening, it became clear. The news reported an accident. The intersection at Baker Street. A man had died. I shuddered. I had been there yesterday. The surveillance camera footage showed him standing on the sidewalk, then taking a step forward. As if someone had pushed him. I picked up the note again. Who could have sent it to me? And more importantly, why? I went to Baker Street. Police tape, investigators, everything as expected. I asked one cop if they had any leads. No witnesses, he shrugged. Cameras didn't help either. No one approached the victim, but he suddenly stepped in front of a car. Have they identified him? The policeman nodded. George Miller. I felt everything tighten inside me. I knew him. George was my classmate. We hadn't seen each other in about 10 years, but I definitely remembered him once telling me something. If I suddenly disappear, don't believe what they say. I couldn't remember in what context he'd said it, but I had brushed it off at the time. Now he was gone. I returned home and examined the letter again. Something rustled inside the envelope. Hidden in the inner corner was another scrap of paper. It was in my handwriting. You were already there. I dropped the note. I didn't write this. Or did I? A fragment surfaced in my memory. I had indeed been at Baker Street. Talking with George. But about what? Why couldn't I remember anything? And who really sent me the letter? The morning sun filtered through the blinds as I stood frozen in my apartment, the yellowed piece of paper trembling between my fingers. My name is Daniel Kovac, and until today, I thought I had a perfectly ordinary life as an insurance adjuster in Boston. Now I wasn't so sure. I read the note for the 20th time, "Don't go to that intersection." Simple black ink on aged paper. The handwriting wasn't familiar, yet something about it tugged at my memory. My phone buzzed with a message from my boss wondering where I was. Already late for work. I stuffed the note in my pocket and hurried out, my mind racing with questions that had no answers. Throughout the day, as I processed claims and took phone calls, that single sentence kept repeating in my head. The envelope had no return address, just my name and address typed on a label. What intersection? Was it a prank? A threat? A warning? By late afternoon, my curiosity had transformed into a nagging unease. I was sitting in the break room scrolling through my phone when a news alert popped up. Fatal accident at Baker Street intersection claims life of local man. My coffee cup nearly slipped from my hand. The intersection of Baker and 4th was only a few blocks from my apartment. I pulled up the article, and my blood turned to ice as I read the details. A pedestrian had been struck by a delivery truck at approximately 7:24 p.m. Pronounced dead at the scene. Police were investigating. I left work early, ignoring my boss's disapproving glare. The sky had darkened with the threat of rain as I approached Baker Street. Yellow police tape cordoned off the intersection, fluttering in the cold autumn wind. A small crowd of onlookers had gathered, their faces illuminated by the flashing lights of police cruisers. I approached a uniformed officer standing guard at the perimeter. "Excuse me, what happened here exactly?" I tried to keep my voice casual. The officer, a heavy-set man with tired eyes, gave me a cursory glance. Pedestrian accident. Guy just walked right into traffic. Was he pushed? The question escaped before I could stop myself. The officer frowned. Why would you ask that? I shrugged, trying to appear nonchalant. Just wondering. Seems strange someone would just walk into traffic. Look, buddy, we're still investigating, he replied, his voice hardening. But the traffic cams showed he was alone on the sidewalk. 1 minute he's standing there, the next he steps in front of a moving truck. No one pushed him. Has he been identified? My mouth felt suddenly dry. The officer hesitated, then seemed to decide there was no harm in answering. Yeah, we notified next of kin about an hour ago. Name's George Miller. The world tilted sideways. George Miller. We'd gone to high school together, ran in the same social circle for a while before drifting apart after graduation. I hadn't seen him in at least a decade. You okay? The officer was studying me with renewed interest. You knew him? Old classmate, I mumbled. We haven't spoken in years. I wandered away from the scene, my mind reeling. The coincidence was too stark to ignore, the mysterious warning about an intersection, and then George's death at that very spot. But why would someone warn me about an intersection where George would die? I wasn't there. I had no plans to be there. Unless. I reached into my pocket for the note, reading it again. Don't go to that intersection. Not, don't be at that intersection. The wording suddenly seemed significant. Don't go there, after the fact. Rain began to fall, soft droplets that quickly intensified into a steady downpour. I ducked under the awning of a closed bookstore, watching as the crime scene technicians hurried to cover evidence with plastic tarps. As I stood there, a fragment of memory surfaced, George sitting across from me in a coffee shop, leaning forward with unusual intensity. If I suddenly disappear, Dan, don't believe what they say. I had laughed it off at the time. George had always been a bit dramatic, prone to conspiracy theories and seeing patterns where none existed. But now, I needed to know more. I decided to visit the local precinct to see what else I could learn about the accident. The police station was a drab concrete building a few blocks away. Inside, fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as I approached the desk sergeant. I'm inquiring about the Baker Street accident, I explained. The victim was an old friend. The sergeant, a woman with silver-streaked hair pulled into a tight bun, regarded me suspiciously. The investigation is ongoing. We don't release details to the public. I understand, but I just. Daniel Kovac. I turned to see a plainclothes detective approaching, a manila folder tucked under his arm. He was tall and gaunt, with the pallor of someone who spent too much time indoors. How do you know my name? I asked. Detective Sawyer, he introduced himself without answering my question. I understand you were acquainted with Mr. Miller. Years ago, yes. High school. Detective Sawyer nodded thoughtfully. Interesting. Would you mind coming with me for a few questions? I followed him to a small interview room with bare walls and a metal table bolted to the floor. The unease I'd been feeling all day intensified. How had he known I was there? How had he known my name? Have a seat, he said, placing the folder on the table. We're just trying to piece together Mr. Miller's final hours. Standard procedure. I sat down, acutely aware of the note still in my pocket. Should I mention it? It would look suspicious to withhold it, but how could I explain receiving a warning about an intersection where, hours later, an old acquaintance would die? When was the last time you spoke with George Miller? Sawyer asked, his pen poised over a notepad. Years ago, I replied. We lost touch after high school. So you haven't seen him recently? Say, in the past week? I hesitated. No, I haven't. That's interesting, Sawyer said, opening the folder. Because we have footage of you meeting with him at a cafe near Baker Street yesterday afternoon. My mouth went dry. That's impossible. Sawyer slid a grainy printout across the table. It showed two men sitting at an outdoor cafe table. One was clearly George. I recognized his angular face and the distinctive scar on his right cheek from a skateboarding accident in ninth grade. The other man had his back to the camera, but even from behind, the set of the shoulders, the dark hair, it could have been me. "That's not me," I insisted, but even to my own ears, my voice sounded uncertain. Sawyer raised an eyebrow. "No. We have witnesses who place you there, Mr. Kovac. A waitress who served you both. The cafe owner who overheard what he described as a heated discussion. There's been a mistake." My head was swimming. I had no memory of meeting George yesterday. No memory of any cafe. "Why don't you tell me about the argument?" Sawyer pressed. "I wasn't there." "Then perhaps you can explain this," Sawyer said, pulling out another photo. It showed the same two men standing near the Baker Street intersection, clearly in the midst of a confrontation. The timestamp indicated it was taken less than an hour before George's death. I stared at the photo, a cold dread washing over me. The man with George was wearing the exact outfit I had worn yesterday, a navy blue jacket and gray pants. "That's not possible," I whispered. Sawyer leaned forward. "Mr. Kovac, witnesses report seeing you push Mr. Miller during that argument." "No. The room seemed to be closing in around me." "No, I didn't. I wasn't there." "Then how do you explain these photos?" "The witnesses." My hands were shaking now. "I can't." Sawyer studied me for a long moment, then sighed. "Look, I don't think you meant to hurt him. Maybe things got out of hand. Maybe it was an accident. But running away from the scene, pretending you weren't there, that makes this whole situation worse." I reached into my pocket and pulled out the note. "I received this in the mail this morning," I said, placing it on the table. "Postmarked yesterday." Sawyer picked it up, frowning. "Don't go to that intersection." "What is this supposed to mean?" "I don't know. But I think it's connected to George's death." "Connected how?" Sawyer asked skeptically. "I don't know that either. But I didn't meet with George yesterday. I didn't push him or argue with him. I wasn't at that intersection." Sawyer folded the note carefully. "I'll need to keep this as evidence." "There's more," I admitted, my voice barely audible. "When I got home from the crime scene tonight, I found something else in the envelope. A second note, hidden in the corner. It said, 'You were already there.' And it was in my handwriting." Sawyer's expression shifted from skepticism to concern. "Mr. Kovac, are you feeling all right?" "I'm not making this up," I insisted. "I didn't say you were." His tone had softened, becoming almost gentle. "But these photos clearly show you with George Miller yesterday. You claim you weren't there, yet you received a note warning you about the intersection where he died. A note that you now say contained a message in your own handwriting that you don't remember writing." When he put it like that, I sounded delusional. "I want to help you, Mr. Kovac," Sawyer continued. "But I need you to be honest with me." "I am being honest," I insisted. "I have no memory of meeting George yesterday." "No memory," Sawyer repeated, making a note. Interesting choice of words. I felt cold sweat beading on my forehead. The implication was clear: either I was lying, or there was something seriously wrong with me. Neither option was comforting. "Am I under arrest?" I asked. "Not at this time," Sawyer replied. "But don't leave town. We'll have more questions for you." I stumbled out of the police station into the rain, which had intensified into a thunderstorm. Lightning illuminated the darkened streets as I made my way home, my mind a whirlpool of contradictions. The photos showed me with George, yet I had no memory of being there. The note warned me about the intersection, yet according to Sawyer, I'd already been there when the note was postmarked. Nothing made sense. By the time I reached my apartment, I was soaked to the skin and shivering. I fumbled with my keys, dropped them, picked them up with numb fingers, and finally managed to unlock the door. Inside, I froze. Something was different. It took me a moment to realize what. My laptop was open on the coffee table. I always shut it down before leaving. Always. I approached cautiously. The screen glowed in the darkness, open to an email account I didn't recognize. The inbox contained dozens of messages, all with the same subject line. Remember. With trembling fingers, I clicked on the most recent one. It contained only 4 words. You're running out of time. The sender's address was my own. I staggered backward, nearly tripping over the coffee table. This wasn't possible. None of this was possible. My phone rang, making me jump. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. A few seconds later, the notification appeared. I pressed play, holding the phone to my ear. Dan. A man's voice, familiar yet unplaceable. I know you're confused. I know you're scared. But you need to remember. Look in the bathroom cabinet, behind the aspirin. Hurry. They're coming. The line went dead. I stood frozen, the phone still pressed to my ear. Then, slowly, I moved toward the bathroom. The medicine cabinet mirror reflected my pale face, dark circles under my eyes that I hadn't noticed this morning. With shaking hands, I opened it and reached behind the aspirin bottle. My fingers closed around a small key. I pulled it out, staring at it in confusion. It wasn't my key, too small for a door, too large for a padlock. It looked like a safe deposit box key. The number 247 was etched into the metal. As I stood there, trying to make sense of this new puzzle piece, I heard a sound that made my blood freeze, the soft click of my apartment door being unlocked. Someone was coming in. I dove into the shower, pulling the curtain closed just as I heard footsteps enter the apartment. Heavy, deliberate footsteps. Not Detective Sawyer, these were the footsteps of someone trying to move quietly and failing. Through a tiny gap in the curtain, I watched as a shadow passed the bathroom door. A man, tall and broad-shouldered, dressed entirely in black. He was methodically searching my apartment, opening drawers, looking under cushions. My heart hammered so loudly I was certain he would hear it. The key dug into my palm where I clutched it. After what seemed like an eternity, the footsteps receded. I heard the apartment door close. Still, I waited, counting to 100 before I dared to move. The apartment had been thoroughly ransacked. Drawers emptied, cushions slashed, even the refrigerator had been cleared out. What was he looking for? The key burned in my palm like a hot coal. Whatever was happening, this key was important enough that someone had broken into my apartment searching for it. I needed answers, and I needed them now. But where to start? The bank would be closed at this hour. The police? After my conversation with Sawyer, I wasn't sure I could trust them. Who had called me? The voice had been familiar. Then it hit me. The voice on the phone had been George's. But George was dead. Unless, he wasn't. I needed to see the body. I needed to be sure. The city morgue was located in the basement of Boston General Hospital. I knew I couldn't simply walk in and demand to see a body, but I had to try something. I grabbed my press pass from my college days. I'd done some freelance journalism on the side, hoping it might still look legitimate enough in dim light. The rain had finally stopped when I arrived at the hospital, though the night air remained thick with humidity. The emergency entrance was brightly lit and busy despite the late hour. I walked with purpose, as if I belonged there, and followed signs to the basement. The morgue was through a set of double doors marked "Authorized Personnel Only." I took a deep breath and pushed through. A young man in scrubs looked up from a computer, startled. "Can I help you?" I flashed my outdated press pass quickly. Daniel Kovac, Boston Chronicle. I'm following up on the Baker Street accident victim. George Miller. The attendant frowned. I didn't get any notice about press. Last-minute assignment, I improvised. Just need to confirm a few details for tomorrow's edition. You should talk to me in the morning. I'm on deadline, I interrupted. Just need visual confirmation and I'll be out of your hair. He hesitated, then sighed. Fine. But 5 minutes, tops. And don't touch anything. He led me through another set of doors into a refrigerated room lined with steel drawers. The antiseptic smell made my stomach turn. Miller. He muttered, checking a clipboard. Here we go. Drawer 14. He pulled open the drawer, revealing a body covered with a sheet. With clinical detachment, he folded back the sheet to reveal the face. I steeled myself, then looked down. The face was George's, the same angular features, the same scar on his right cheek. But something felt wrong. I couldn't put my finger on what exactly, but looking at him gave me the same disoriented feeling as seeing the photos of myself with him at the cafe. Is that sufficient? The attendant asked impatiently. I nodded, unable to speak. As the drawer slid closed, I noticed something clutched in George's hand, a small piece of paper, yellow with age. Wait, I said. What's that in his hand? The attendant glanced down. Must have been missed during processing. Happens sometimes. He carefully extracted the paper with gloved hands. What does it say? I asked. He unfolded it, then frowned. It's just a list of numbers. And a name. He showed me the paper. 247-356-819 Kovac. My name. And the first number matched the key I'd found. I need a copy of that, I said. The attendant shook his head. No way. This is evidence now. Please, I urged. It's important. Something in my expression must have reached him. He sighed, took out his phone, and snapped a photo of the paper. Give me your number. But if anyone asks, this never happened. I left the hospital with the numbers saved on my phone, more confused than ever. George was dead. The body in the morgue confirmed that. But the phone call. The voice had sounded exactly like him. And now this, a series of numbers and my name, clutched in his dead hand. The first number corresponded to the key I'd found. 247, a safe deposit box. But at which bank? And what did the other numbers mean? I hailed a cab, directing the driver to George's last known address, an apartment building in Cambridge that I'd found with a quick online search. I needed to see if there was anything there that could explain what was happening. The building was an older brick structure with a security door. I buzzed apartment 3B, George's unit, knowing no one would answer but hoping someone else might let me in. To my surprise, a voice crackled over the intercom. Yes. I froze. It was George's voice. Again. Hello, the voice prompted. Who's there? It's Daniel, I finally managed. Daniel Kovac. Silence. Then, come up. The door buzzed. I entered, my heart pounding as I climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor. Apartment 3B was at the end of the hallway. The door was slightly ajar. George. I called, pushing it open. The apartment was dark except for the blue glow of a computer screen. As my eyes adjusted, I made out a figure sitting in front of it, his back to me. I was wondering when you'd show up, the figure said in George's voice. Did you find the key? Yes, I replied cautiously. George, they told me you were dead. I saw your body at the morgue. The figure chuckled. And yet, here I am. He swiveled the chair to face me. I gasped. The man had George's voice, but his face was mine. What the hell is this? I stumbled backwards. Who are you? I'm you, Daniel, he said calmly. Or rather, you're me. It gets a bit confusing after a while. This isn't possible, I whispered. Sit down, my doppelganger said, gesturing to a chair. You look like you're about to faint, and we don't have time for that. They'll be here soon. They? Who's they? I remained standing, too shocked to move. The same people who were in your apartment earlier. The same people who followed you to the morgue. The same people who will kill you if you don't listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you. I sank into the chair, my legs no longer able to support me. I don't understand any of this. No, you don't, he agreed. But you will. The safe deposit box contains everything you need to know. But first, I need to explain something about memory. About time. He turned back to the computer, typing rapidly. Reality isn't as linear as we think, Daniel. Neither is memory. Sometimes, things happen out of sequence. Sometimes, we remember things that haven't happened yet. That doesn't make any sense, I protested. Doesn't it? He looked at me over his shoulder, my own eyes staring back at me. You received a warning about an intersection before an accident occurred there. You found a note in your handwriting that you don't remember writing. You heard a dead man's voice on your phone. Put like that, it almost made a twisted kind of sense. Time isn't breaking down, he continued. Your perception of it is. Your memories are shuffling. Like a deck of cards being constantly rearranged. That's why you don't remember meeting George yesterday, even though you did. That's why you don't remember writing that note, even though you did. Why is this happening to me? I asked. My doppelganger stopped typing. Because of what you discovered. Because of what's in that safe deposit box. A loud bang from the hallway made us both jump. They're here, he said grimly. Listen carefully. First Commonwealth Bank, downtown branch. The other numbers are the access code for the computer inside. Remember, trust no one. Not even yourself. The banging grew louder, someone was trying to break down the door. Go, my doppelganger urged, pointing to a window that led to the fire escape. I'll hold them off. But. Go. I scrambled out the window just as the door burst open. Through the glass, I saw 3 men in black tactical gear enter the apartment. My doppelganger lunged at them, buying me time. I clambered down the fire escape, my mind reeling with impossible revelations. As I reached the alley below, I heard a gunshot from above. I ran. The night became a blur of back alleys and side streets as I tried to put distance between myself and whoever was after me. Eventually, I found myself near the harbor, hidden in the shadow of a warehouse, trying to make sense of everything. My doppelganger had mentioned memory and time becoming shuffled. Was that why I couldn't remember meeting George? Why I couldn't remember writing that note? And if what he said was true, what could possibly be in that safe deposit box that was worth killing for? I checked my watch. 3:47 a.m. The bank wouldn't open for hours. I needed somewhere to lay low until then. As the first light of dawn broke over the harbor, I made my decision. I would go to the bank as soon as it opened. I would find out what was in box 247. And then, maybe, I would finally understand why I had written myself a warning about an intersection where a dead man who wasn't really dead had been killed. The only certainty I had was that nothing was certain anymore, not my memories, not my identity, not even time itself. Who had really sent that letter? And who was I, really? The answers, I hoped, were waiting for me in a safe deposit box that held a secret worth dying for. Or perhaps worth killing for.